is one of the 15 centers of the Consultative Group for International Agricultural Research. I have to say that climate change is one of the is one of the concerns that's really given emphasis in our institute. Okay, as I mentioned earlier, climate change is a universal phenomenon. Each one of us here in the hall, from all walks of life, has to be concerned with. And for this presentation, I'd like to pose the question, is there really relevance or importance of ICT in this global phenomenon? This is the brief outline of the presentation, where I will try to focus on my presentation on our organizational strategy in addressing climate change, plus of course our pilot project on ICT-mediated agro-advisory. To start with, I have to say that warming is one of the best indicators of this global phenomenon on climate change. And this started to come out as early as 1979 when satellite measurements began. And it's quite alarming that land warming is significantly faster than the ocean over the last 20 years. And I think this is really something that we really have to reckon with. And this has brought devastating effects. Like heavy precipitation, and if you've been watching to your BBC or CNN 3 weeks back, I think one of the countries, particularly Taiwan, one of their villages has been flattened because of heavy inundation or flooding. And of course, there are more intense and longer droughts, which is very difficult to reckon with by resource-poor farm households or farmers. And other than that, there's also extreme heavy burden for the vulnerable groups, particularly for women, who has to reckon not only with the domestic responsibilities, but also with livelihood, because they're very much involved in farming activities. And ICRISAT is focused in this red portion of the world, or what we call the semi-arid tropics in the sub-Saharan Africa and Asia. As you can see, India is there. There's a lot of dry areas, where 1/6 of the world's population is located, of which more than 500 million of the world's poorest people are in these areas. And not to mention, we have the most marginalized environment in these areas, particularly in terms of climate, soils, and infrastructure. Now, ICRISAT is quite anticipatory, so it has devised its operational research strategy in addressing climate change, and two of which are categorized in two categories. We have the short to medium term, where we try to help farmers to cope with the current rainfall variability, especially of this year. And we have the medium to longer term, where ICRISAT tries to adapt its mandate crops. We're working on 4 mandate crops. We have sorghum, groundnut, pearl millet, chickpea. So these are the 4 commodities that we're working with, where we try to grow this, where we're trying to manipulate our crops to grow in warmer world or even in waterlogged conditions. As you can see, the semi-arid tropic farmer or the dryland farmer is beset with a melange of problems and constraints, one of which is the poor dissemination of improved technologies. And for him to be able to adapt, he needs to have, or to plan early, he needs to have the best information at the shortest possible time. And this is where ICRISAT made some headway through the project, the Virtual Academy for the Semi-Arid Tropics, VASAT for short, where we try to address problems of drought mitigation, and where we also emphasize women's contribution. And we try to address this through hub and spokes approach, or the concept of hub and spoke concept. Let me discuss a little bit more about this agro-advisory pilot project. As I mentioned earlier, ICRISAT, in partnership with an all-women's organization, particularly the Adarsha Mahila Samakya, in one particular place in India, which is called Adakal in Andhra Pradesh, which serves as the hub, and we have access points which are located within 5-kilometer radius, and both the hub and the spoke are equipped with the basic computer facilities and internet connectivity. And information which are received are being disseminated through conventional means like pamphlets, field visit, plus latest technology like SMS and mobile telephoning. To date, we've been giving customized messages through SMS in 21 villages. Okay. Other than that, we also participate with other organizations like IIT Kanpur, where we try to develop ICT information communication materials, which makes it easier for us to do our extension work. For instance, it has been predicted for this year, particularly 2009, by the International Research Institute of Climate and Society based in the United States, that South India will have rainfall below the normal. In fact, it's estimated at 450 millimeters. So ICRISAT tried to get data and did statistical analysis of a 20-year data on rainfall obtained from Mahabubnagar district, where we are operating or where we have our pilot project in Adakal. And it was found that our rainfall is even below the 450 millimeter which was predicted. And this, we have developed, our ICRISAT team, we have developed a color-coded maps based on problem situations of drinking water, inadequate irrigation, shortage of feed and fodder. And as you can see in this map, the red areas are the most worst hit in terms of drought. And this we also tried to validate through information obtained by women volunteers whom we trained. So with small investment in capacity building, they were able to gather the data from rain gauge that we have installed in their particular place, and tried to upload this information every day in the wiki page. And we, as you can see, for the month of June till August, as of yesterday, the rainfall that has come is only 97.4, which is even far, far below the 450 millimeter which is predicted. Also, these color-coded maps are translated in the lingua franca, or for instance in Telugu, for better understanding for communities. And here, as you can see, we also try to make use of our investigators plus the volunteers within the community in trying to build the awareness of farmers with the conditions of drought. In fact, the use of the color-coded maps makes it easier for us to convince that this is the situation, this is the particular situation of this particular cropping season. And here we provide some, this is also where ICRISAT has found a niche in contributing to the agro-advisory program, where we try to do video conferencing every week, where there is a virtual face-to-face communication between farmers and our experts. As you can see, we have an expert there, and we have the farmers, where we try to provide a face-to-face communication and advice. For instance, for this year, it has been advised that because of the delayed rainfall, farmers were advised to grow short-duration rice varieties. Okay, in a nutshell, just to give you a little bit of what we do, the entire program, research and development program of ICRISAT, is guided by the tenets of systems perspective, or what we call integrated genetic and natural resource management, where we put equal emphasis on maintaining or developing our mandate crops plus the socio-economic dimensions, particularly extension education. And as you can see in this presentation, we have seen how important ICT in making extension work for the farm households, where they're able to plan for eventualities, especially of drought. Thank you, and this is the presentation.